In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to create a team directory, a project management solution, and an expense tracking tool, all powered by the same Airtable base in Stacker. This is great if you want to create a kind of a team intranet where people can log in and access the data that's relevant, and we can deal with some of the more private information in the same place without having to reveal that to everybody. Let's go and see how that looks. So here's the Airtable base we're using. Really important to note here, we've got a table where we're tracking the staff, we're tracking all their details, and we're using that table via link fields to connect into the events they're attending, the projects they're part of, and the expenses they've submitted. If currently you're using collaborator fields, you'll need to change that to be a staff table in order to use this kind of functionality. But it's really useful to be able to do that because now we can keep track of extra bits of information, including some private information that we're going to have to treat in a sensitive manner in the Stacker app. Let's go and see how to do that. So I've already connected the Airtable base into Stacker, and now the first thing we need to do is choose who's going to be logging in. So we've got that staff table, and in that table we've got the staff's email addresses, so we can choose that as their email column. Now, I really recommend removing anything that isn't going to be actually in your app from this, just to keep the UI really clean and to keep the setup really simple. And of course, if you've got a logo, now's the time to upload it to make this feel like a really great branded experience. Great, we're all set up. So the first thing to do as the admin is to just go and have a look at the data that's come in. So we've got the staff, the projects, all the tasks relating to those projects, and the expenses submitted. So right now, we're viewing this as the admin, so we can see all the data with no permissions applied. But let's quickly log in as one of our users and see how it looks from their perspective. So we're going to log in as Eduardo, who's one of the team members. And Eduardo can only see his own profile when he logs in. He can see all the projects, and he can even see all the expenses, but we've automatically set it up because that is the user table to only show staff members their own staff record. Now that's okay for if you're doing this for customers, but because we want people to see not just their own profile, but all the other team members within the same app, we're going to need to do something slightly different. So let's go and have a look at how the permissions work and see how we can allow Eduardo to see everyone else without being able to have full access to all their details. So we've automatically set up one permission rule, which allows Eduardo to see his own record because we've got a match between this record and the user that's logging in. He's able to update his own details and he can access any field on that record, but he can't create new staff members. So what we're going to do is add a new rule which will allow him to access other people's profiles but not be able to edit them. But to start with, let's just rename this rule to view and edit my own record. Great. Now we can add the new rule, which is view other people's records. So this rule comes in by default as being able to access all the records, but correctly we can't update these other records and we can't create new records. We don't have access to all the fields, and here's our opportunity to limit which fields we'll be able to access, and since we've got update disabled, this will only give them read access to these fields. So we'll add these non-sensitive fields in, but what we're not going to do is we're not going to enable social security number. And that means that we've restricted it so each staff member can only see their own social security number. Let's go and check how that has worked. So we're going to impersonate Eduardo again. And here, if we click into a different member of staff, for example, Garnet, we don't have the ability to edit, and we don't have access to the social security number. But if we go and find Eduardo, Eduardo can edit his own profile, and he's got access to his own social security number. So here we've got a good way to separate out private data and public data, and separate out edit access from non-edit access just using the permission system. So now that we've locked that down, let's go and make this layout a little more appealing as a staff directory. So we're going to click this edit layout button, and the first thing we'll do is turn this into a card display mode. I think this looks more appealing as a staff directory, and I think we can get rid of some of this extra information. So let's just put on which department everyone's in, and to make this even more useful, we can enable inline filters, which means that we can go and filter directly for only showing people in the IT department, for example. Great. Now that we've edited this, let's click in, and after saving this layout, we can also make some changes to this page to make it feel a bit more like a user's profile page. So we can change the template from the default one to something more appropriate, given that we know that this is a human being, this is a user's profile page. So now we've got the profile picture and the name in this little card on the side, and we can add a few more items into this card just to make them stand out more and be more appropriate for quick viewing. So we'll add their email address, their phone number, so we'll add their contact details. This will only show up if this is your own record, and we can also bring in their department here as well. In this section, we can get rid of this general information, and instead we'll display maybe something which shows which projects this user is involved in. So we're going to drag in the related record list here, and we're going to choose the projects leading table. So this is the one that they are leading, not the ones that they're just involved in. And we'll choose the project layout, and for a user that has some projects, let's look at the ones that they're actually members of. So members of, great. So now we can see for any staff member which projects they're involved in. Let's go into the projects tab now. Firstly, I think we can make this again look a little nicer from the outside. So let's display this as rows rather than as a table, and we don't need the full description, and we don't need a copy of this attachment field. Okay, this is looking a lot nicer. Now we can go and have a look at the detail page and maybe make this layout a bit more usable for people who want to come here and get information at a glance. We've got a lot of fields here, but some of this is, I think, more important than others, like the kickoff date and the number of tasks. If we want to make these things more prominent, we can use a highlight field to select the things that are worth pulling out and worth highlighting at the top, and put these to be really big and bold. Okay, that's looking good. Let's get rid of some of these other fields that are maybe less useful right here. Okay, so we can see the members, but it would be much more useful to be able to visually see who is involved in this project and, see their face. So let's get rid of that, and instead we'll again use a record list to bring in that relevant information onto this page. So we're going to connect to the members, and we're going to choose that layout that we just made, and now we can see a great visual view of who's involved in this project. We also have tasks linked to a project. So let's go and have a look at how we're laying out this tasks view and see if we could do something similar to get these tasks onto the project page. Tasks go through certain statuses from incomplete to in progress and finally to be complete. And anything which goes through that kind of funnel, pipeline stages is really good to be displayed in a Kanban board. So we'll select that and choose the status field, and maybe we'll choose only the columns we're interested in. So we'll say, we'll take everything going from complete, in progress, all the way through to complete. And we're going to take off as much information as we can. We already know which project it's going to be. We'll be displaying this on the project page. And we already know the status because that is contextual within this board. So this is a much cleaner layout. And now we can go to the project page and add these tasks in maybe just above this staff list. So let's add the record list in here. And we can choose tasks and choose that new layout we've just done. And now we can see the tasks that are open at this project. And we can even allow you to add a new task directly into that project. That's looking really good. And just to test that, when I add this, this is automatically going to add a task into that project. Okay. Because we've added tasks onto this page, I don't think we need to show that in the navigation anymore. So I'm going to go edit this navigation, and we're going to hide tasks altogether. We can also rename the staff table to something a bit more friendly. So let's call that team. Finally, let's get the expenses to be more personal and to be only showing the expenses for each staff member. So right now, expenses doesn't have any permissions on it, so everyone can see everyone else's expenses. This is a more private thing in this company, so we're going to want to limit this, and here we're going to use the link between the expenses table and the staff table in order to limit which users can see which. So we've got this field paid by, which says who originally paid the expense, and that is a link from the expenses table to the staff table. And we can use that link in permissions to limit who can see which records. So we've set it up no longer to show all records, but only to show some records. And we'll use this link for who paid the expense to match the user. And that limits who can access which records. Now, when creating an expense, currently you get to select who paid it. And that kind of doesn't make sense. I think if Eduardo had logged in, he shouldn't be able to select Emily or Garnet as the payer. All the expenses Eduardo logs should be based on him. Thankfully, we've got the ability to do that. And there's also some of these others I think we probably want to get rid of. We don't want Eduardo to be able to prove his own expenses. And we don't want him to be able to set whether this has been paid or not. So firstly, we can limit all the records created by Eduardo to show in that field. So we've got this created by field, which we'll set as paid by. And that means every record Eduardo creates will have his link in the paid by field. We can also then go and have a look at these permissions, which right now all the fields are open, and lock it down so that we're unable to create, set the approved field while creating, or update the approved field after it has been created. And we'll do the same with the paid field. Now the paid by field we do want to be able to set while we're creating, because we've already got that covered by this created by fee functionality which we set up here. But we don't want this to be changed after the fact. So we're going to untick that, and that should lock us down so that even though we can see who paid it, we're not able to update it. And the same with the approved status. So let's go have a look at some of these. We're going to log in as Sasha, who should be able to not see the video camera expense or the new members gift, but should be able to see this food for the early kickoff meeting. So we'll log in as her. So Sasha can only see one expense. She can see that it's approved, and while she can edit some of the details, she can't edit its approval status or its paid status. She also can't edit who paid it, and that is still linked to her profile. So we've now created a team directory and a project management tool and an expense tracking tool, all powered by the same Airtable base. We've used permissions to limit who can access which records and also which fields they can access. And that allows us to hide both sensitive records, like the expenses, and sensitive fields on records that you can access, like the social security number of the other staff members.